Hey, this is Steve Bloom, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
You've just jumped inside the Pull Bag. Join TFG1Mike and the rest of the comic reading crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, IDW, Boom Studios, Zenescope, and more, we have everything you want to read right here. Transformers comics? Yeah, we cover that. He-Man? Yeah, sure. DC superheroes like Batman, Batgirl, Nightwing, and Batman Beyond? Yep, we have those too. How about TMNT from IDW and I Hate Fairyland from Image Comics? Yeah, we have all that here. Plus, so much more. It's all inside the Pull Bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So without any further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we are reading right now here inside the Pull Bag.
Welcome to the Pull Bag. This is episode 373.5. This was going to actually be something else, but the guy we were getting for that, he fell into some Kryptonian mine in the middle of Kansas. I don't know what happened. It was some weird Frank Miller, Batman, John Byrne, no clue. Why Batman is in Superman? Anyway, I'm of course TFG1Mike. Joining me, as you can hear him snickering and laughing in the background, is Mr. Ryan Drost, the host with the most from Star Joe's. Hello, sir.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, and we're here to talk about your creation, yours and, oh boy, I'm bad with names. What is her name?
Alexandra Scott.
There you go, Alexandra Scott. Oh, that's easy to remember. Yeah. Considering that, what's her name? Is it Ashley? Not Ashley Scott. Who was the original 2003 Birds of Prey? It was just in the news recently that she's
Nicola
coming.
Scott?
I don't know. Anyway, point is, Ryan Drost, Alexander Scott, the Stealth Hammer. When I know you had sent this to me. I know you sent me the Facebook, request to like the page, whatever else.
Yeah.
When I was searching for it before I suggested we do this, I was like, oh crap, it's Stealth Hammer, not Sledgehammer. There's no Peter Gabriel here.
It's also not wasn't that also the 1980s TV show?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
Where we had the gun, and it was like a spoof on all the 80s action movies and TV shows. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, not Sledgehammer. Although that may be a character in the future. I'm just to throw out a hint there. So.
Oh boy. So yeah, so folks, you can get the Kickstarter link in the show notes. It's basically Ryan and Alexandra are going to be creating this comic. What is the genesis of this? When was the first idea? Okay. All that stuff. Background for how you're going to come up with this.
Yeah, so Stealth Hammer is its origin actually is a nickname that my wife has. She got a nickname at one place that she worked at for being stealthy, and her boss actually called her Stealth for that. And then another place she worked at, she was in charge of brand compliance, where she had to put the hammer down on people when they were trying to use a logo or an image in a way that it wasn't supposed to be used. Right. So she's like, well, I already have a nickname of Stealth, so she just blended the two together of Stealth Hammer. And we always joke that would make a great superhero. We started talking about what her powers would be and all that type of stuff. And I've always wanted to do a comic book. As you know, Mike, I've been heavily into comics most of my life. And I've also loved telling stories. And I was like, this is what I would love to do. And last October, my wife had a milestone birthday, and I decided to have a commission done of her drawn as the Stealth Hammer, just as a superhero. And once I saw the image and gave it to her, I was like, oh my God, this actually could be something. And the second I thought that, ideas just started flooding my head of like, where's this character coming from? What's her origin? What's her powers? How does she get those powers? What's her family like? What's her villains like? Quite literally, I was there on vacation with my wife for her birthday, and I am like taking pictures of things that gave me story ideas and typing up notes on my phone and everything else. And she was actually getting excited too by hearing how excited I was. It's gone through a lot of evolution, as you can imagine. A lot of ideas came and went. And as I've been working with the artist, Alex, and I'll talk about how I met her, but as I've been working with her, it's been a very collaborative effort, because I'll throw stuff out at her and she will draw something or she'll send something back to me, and I'm like, oh, that would make a great story element, and here's what I'm going to do with that. So it's been really good back and forth. How I met Alex was I knew there was a certain style I was looking for. And I knew I wanted this cartoony yet detailed style. I knew I needed someone that could draw backgrounds really well, because there's a lot of details in the backgrounds there. So this first issue, it's a basic superhero origin story, and we can get into that a little bit. But it's in the story and in the dialogue and in the background, there are hints of where this story is going and what people can expect in the future. And so I reached out to my good friend Robert Atkins, who's a comic book artist and has been on the show many times for Star Joe's, and said, hey, could you introduce me to somebody? I'm looking for this type of style. And I sent him some pictures, gave him some artists that I thought would be good. I said, could you connect me with some people, just an introduction type thing, since you're in the industry? And he says, I can, but I have, he teaches at the Savannah College of Art and Design. And he says, I have this student who just graduated, and she's perfect for what you're looking for. She's already at professional level. It might be a little tougher for you guys with your Kickstarter because you're a new writer and she's a new artist. But if you guys do X, Y, and Z, it'll show people what everything will look like and what the story will be like. And I was like, let her go ahead and send me some stuff. And she did. And she hit I gave him a character description that he gave to her, and she nailed the character, like spot on. And it has been mostly like that through the entire time. There's been obviously a couple times where I described something and she was a little off on what I was looking for.
Right.
But I'd say 90% of the time, what I send her, what she sends back to me, I don't even have an edit. I don't even have could you do this? She just nails it every single time. So that's the hopefully very quick way of letting you know where this came from.
Very cool.
Where we
very
are,
cool.
Where we are now. Yeah.
So currently the Kickstarter has 41 backers and it's got 21 days left, folks. So you got 3 weeks to get $12,750 goal. There is stretch goals of $15,000 and other things as well. Rewards ranging from $1 all the way up to $550, I believe.
Yep.
And obviously, if you folks that are listening to this have used Kickstarter before, most campaigns will, if you go to a higher level, will include the previous level's rewards.
Yes.
Most of the time. Some do not. Most of the time they do, though. So yeah, I mean, if you just want to help out, pledge $1. If you want a digital copy of the comic, pledge. I think it was $3.
$3. Yep.
If you want more stuff from Ryan and from Alex and everybody that's working on this, pledge more. The more they make, the easier it is going to be for them to make the comic.
Yep, and I will say a couple of them that are a little bit higher, but I think well worth the money. A couple of them that I think are the most fun. There's one at $100 level where you not only get the comic, the variant cover to the comic, and all the other fun stuff like you mentioned, Mike, but you also get a hardcover behind-the-scenes book. I've been collecting all of the concept artwork, all the stuff that Alex has been sending me, preliminary pages, preliminary character sheets, things like that. And I'm going to put together a book. And my wife is a graphic designer, so she's going to help me with putting it together so it looks like an amazing book that you would get from any place professionally. And it's going to have all the details. It's going to talk about where the story's going, where the origin of certain characters came from, origins of certain story elements came from, stuff like that. So you get this nice hardcover book. I think it's going to be about 30 to 35 pages of amazing artwork, detailed information behind that artwork. Plus, you get all that other stuff. The other one that's really fun is the $200 level, which there's, I believe, only 2 or 3 of them left. There was 5 total. There's only 3 left, where you can actually be a character in the story. Cool. Your likeness can be put into there. So there's 5 characters that I don't know what they're going to look like. They're kind of like just story element characters. So they're not like main ongoing characters or anything like that, but they're story element characters. There's a bus driver, there's 2 police officers, and there's 2 Men in Black type characters. And I made sure with Alex before I put it up there as a reward, I was like, how are you with drawing likenesses? And she's like, I can totally do that. So yeah, if you choose that reward, you yourself or someone that you would want can actually have their likeness put into the comic. And then you'll get a special print of the page that you are featured in, sent to you, obviously along with the issue and everything else, and that print will be signed by myself and Alex as well. So,
very cool, very cool. Talk to us about the characters.
Sure.
Stealth Hammer, aka Jamie Taylor, is the main heroine of the story.
Yep.
We've got Dr. Everett Taylor. Yep. And Dr. Alexander. Why is it Alexander's always bad? Like, are you going to make this guy go bald and, have green rocks on his desk and stuff?
So I will, I know Alexas are always bad. So, So I can actually talk about where that came from. So Jamie, this is really the story and everything else is a love letter to all the things I have grown to love in comics. But it's also a love letter to my family and friends and things like that. So there's names that come up that are related to people that we know and everything else. Jamie Taylor is based on my wife. I've established that. And her last name is not Taylor, nor is that her maiden name, but it was her grandmother's name. Last name was Taylor.
Oh, very cool.
So I was like, Jamie Taylor sounds like a good generic name that would be a cool character. She has a grandmother named Patricia and Taylor, and she's known as Patsy Sunshine, and that's actually my wife's mom. Okay. So I made the character in the story have a grandmother who is named after my wife's mom.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and there's story elements with this grandmother that I can touch on a little bit. Dr. Everett Taylor is my mother-in-law's very much into genealogy. She loves her family history and everything else. So my wife has a copy of her family's genealogy book, and I said, start going through names. And I'm someone that once I hear something that sounds good, I go with it, like my instinct. I just go with my gut. And she mentioned Everett, and I'm trying to listen for a name of a father figure who's a scientist who is altruistic. So when you come to Dr. Everett Taylor and Dr. Alexander Taylor, I can tell you the inspiration for them was a Dr. Light and Dr. Wily inspiration from Mega Man. Dr. Light's all very good and wants to help mankind, and Dr. Wily was, wanted to just take over the world, and that's really what's going on with these two characters. And And she mentioned Everett, and I was like, Everett Taylor. That sounds like a good doctor. That sounds like someone that would be nice when you hear his name. And then Dr. Alexander, she mentioned Alexander was another family member, and just like you were saying, Alexander was like, yeah, that sounds evil. That sounds good. Let's go with that. So they are brothers. They are very different from each other. Like I mentioned, Dr. Everett is very altruistic. He wants to benefit mankind. We will find out that Jamie and her father and her grandmother all come from a legacy of characters. That's another thing I always loved in comics, was characters that carried on a legacy. And to them, to Dr. Everett, it's all about benefiting mankind and protecting the earth and protecting people and stuff like that. He doesn't think about what he looks like. He's been known to wear the same clothes multiple days in a row. He's most focused on the work. Dr. Alexander is his polar opposite. He's all about his ego. He wants to look good. He's always pressed in a nice suit. He's all about power, or the perception of power, but he also doesn't want to put the effort in. He definitely comes up with robotic contraptions, which is another element with this story, is that it is I'm bringing something I always loved in storytelling, which is mythology and fantasy meets science and technology. So, like, think of like He-Man, or think of Thunder the Barbarian, things like that. I loved it when they meshed those two together. So, Dr. Alexander is that sciencey tech type person, but in a future story, not this first issue, but in a future story, we will see him actually become the first melding of both science and mythology. So,
wow. Very cool.
So you're mentioning of like him going bald and stuff like that, not saying that's going to happen, but there will be changes to him physically because of this blending of science and technology.
Yeah, his character design kind of reminds me of the very bottom one there, where he's screaming on the Kickstarter page. People kind of reminds me of Miles Mayhem a little bit. Yeah, the way she drew that, and then so there's that, and then all I can hear now in my head, since you mentioned Dr. Wily, I'm like, hey, maybe I can contact Ian James Corlett for you guys, because it's like, damn, Dr. Wily's right there. Yeah.
And that is the direction I gave Alex. And I also, one thing I noticed with her artwork that I really loved was she has this style that reminds me very much of like Don Bluth style characters. So if you think of like Anastasia, or even if you're looking at the Disney side of things, if you look at something like Atlantis or something like that, it has those types of almost like an animated style, but it's also got this manga style to it. It's got this cool cartoony style that almost makes it come to life. So
very cool.
Yeah. So we have those characters. We also have another villain that we see in the preview pages. We don't see her in the until page 3 of the preview pages, which I'll be posting soon. But there's this character called Marzana. Okay. And she is definitely a mythology type character. She actually does this. The name does exist in true mythology. She's a Polish deity of death. And I was looking for. I love mythology, any country or culture. I love studying it, and so I wanted to use mythological characters that aren't normally used. And Arzana actually came up from, of all places, I was watching a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, and they started doing this little song of mythological beings across the globe. And I heard this name Marzana, and I was like, well, that sounds cool. And they kind of briefly, of course, only briefly mentioned what it was. And so I did some research, and I was like, well, this is cool. And there's not a lot of artist renditions of what people think this character looks like. So that also helped. And so she is this deity of death. She is there to stop Jamie from achieving her goal. She has her own personal reasons for that. But she's kind of, as you would imagine, she's kind of like a Reaper type character. She has this porcelain mask that she can change its expression through magical means. But she doesn't say much. And she has these little, I shouldn't say little, they're pretty big, these creatures called wolf rats that are her at her beck and call. And we will see a hint of them in the background of the first issue. So like I said, you always have to be paying attention to the background. But we see them full form in the 5-page preview. And on the Kickstarter, you can see the first 2 pages of that 5-page preview. And the wolf rats are there front and center. The pack leaders are Chernabog and Belobog, which are also deities in mythology. So those are my pack leaders, and they are much like Ghostbusters. They are distinguished just by from each other by one little thing, and that's that one of them has some scars on his face, and the other one does not. So if you remember the demon dogs in Ghostbusters, one had a little bit different size horns than the other one. So kind of same thought here.
Very cool.
Yeah. And there's a lot of nods, as I mentioned. Not only is it a love letter to my family and friends, but it is also a love letter to all the things I grew up with. So there's a lot of references to stuff that I love. So like I mentioned, the idea of the wolf rats being a little different is a little nod to the demon dogs in Ghostbusters. If you look at the preview page where Jamie Taylor is climbing with the elf Ari, and we'll talk about him in a moment. The elf Ari is on her back. That is definitely a nod to Luke Skywalker walking around training with
Yoda
on his back. Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot of things like that I intentionally did. But yeah. Then we have Ari the elf, and yes. he is probably going to be a fan favorite character. He is a grouchy, snarky old elf. Who is sent on a mission by somebody who he respects, and I won't get into who that is because it's a little bit of a secret. But he is sent to help Jamie on her way, and but he does it in his style, which is full snarkiness. He is like that comic relief type character. He is 216 years old, and that's a little nod to where I live because the Cleveland area code is 216.
Very cool.
So yeah. There is one love that he has in his life. And that is, and this came from a story element. Remember I was mentioning that Alex sometimes would draw something that would make me think of a story element. She drew Ari, and she had him, in this little preliminary sketch of him sitting there drinking a carton of strawberry milk with a straw. And I was like, oh, my God, what if this is the only thing that brings him joy in life is strawberry milk? And not only does it bring him joy, but he can actually get drunk from it. Lord. Yeah, so this is going to be a story element because I'm looking to do this one issue through Kickstarter. After this one issue is done, I'm going to shop it around to different publishers.
Yeah.
Have it turn into a mini series or even an ongoing series. So I have ideas for where the story is going to go and what is going to happen with these characters. And one of the ideas is to do a one-shot story of Ari and his trip from Iceland to the U.S. to help Jamie along her way. And one of the things that will happen in that story is him discovering strawberry milk. So,
oh boy. Well, I'm glad it's strawberry milk and not Starbucks.
Yeah, no, not at all. He does not have that addiction.
I mean, last thing we need is a elf wizard looking Yoda character strung up on coffee.
Right.
And now all I can think of is Twitchy from Hoodwinked. Coffee. Oh man. Yeah. This looks really, really fun. I mean, I'll go ahead and throw some names out there, but whatever happens. I hope it doesn't hinder anything. I could see this being something at IDW.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they would get on board or anything. I have no clue, no connection, no whatever. I'm just saying, looking at the characters, looking at the preview, the 2 preview pages that are here, this to me looks like an IDW book.
Yeah, and I have some contacts that would be able to connect me with people at IDW through people I've known over the years. There's a few publishers that I think it meets what style they do, which is IDW is definitely one of them. Boom Studios would be another one, and Action Lab would be a third one that I think would be potentially interested in this. There's also American, I think it's called American Mythology, is a publisher that has done all ages comics before. And this is an all ages comic. I intentionally wanted something that anyone, a true all ages. I wanted something that anyone of any age could read and enjoy. So I can read it and have a lot of fun reading it, but I can also give it to my niece and nephew, and they can enjoy reading it. But I can also give it to my parents, and they would enjoy it. I know a lot of all ages comics that are out there are very much geared towards little kids. Yeah. And that is not what I was looking to do. I wanted something that would really be truly for anyone of any age to pick up and enjoy. So that's the intent behind it.
Very cool, very cool. Anything else we want to bring up or say, or anything else we need to know about this?
I would just implore anyone to just go check it out. There are some preview pages on the Kickstarter page, so you can actually get an idea of what the story reads like, what the artwork will look like. There's character sheets there. I am updating every 3-4 days on the Kickstarter, as well as on the various social media channels for Stealth Hammer. There's a Stealth Hammer Facebook page, Instagram, and Twitter account out there. So if you look up Stealth Hammer, you'll find it. But yeah, just check it out. Find if something appeals to you. Every little bit, this is very much true, even though the goal is very high, every little bit is going to matter. And I will say that if for any reason this does not get funded, it's not the end of the story. This is going to be made one way or another. It might just take longer if the Kickstarter doesn't get funded, but which is why I need people's help, because I would love to get this done in 2020 and get it shopped around and bring the story, because I have, as I told my artist, I have probably a good 30 to 50 issues in my head as far as where this is going to go.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, yeah. So there's elements I had mentioned. There's elements of legacy. So if anyone has certain interests when it comes to comics, give you an idea. There's elements of legacy. So like I mentioned, her grandmother, but there is elements that go back way before her grandmother, and she finds ties to, let's say, another character that in mythology that has a hammer involved.
Are we sure that that's worthy enough?
Might be.
Come on now. If the guy from 1941 is worthy enough,
right.
Come on.
And mine is very different than what you would have come accustomed to.
Well,
as you can imagine.
Because there's the whole pesky copyright.
Right.
You can't just pluck Mjolnir out of the sky.
But I can follow true mythology. So
true, very true, yeah.
And that's more of what I'm doing. And then and there's going to be other historical figures that are tied to her legacy as well. If you're someone that likes mythology, and if you're someone that likes giant robots and things like that, both of those elements will play a factor in this story. If you're someone who likes alternate dimensions, there will be hints of that in the very first issue. And remember, I mentioned something about Sledgehammer. Well, that's an idea I have for maybe an alternate version of our main character. So think of something like the Crime Syndicate versions of the heroes. It's kind of what I have in mind for a Sledgehammer character. So
it would kind of be like Shattered Glass for Transformers.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So these are all things that as ideas have popped in my head for story elements. These are all things I've been jotting down to make sure I don't forget any of them, and that I put little hints of them in the issues, because, like I said, the very first issue is going to be very, very important, very critical, because there's going to be a lot of things mentioned in the dialogue and a lot of things hanging around in the background that once future issues come out, you're going to read something and go, wait, I saw that on page 2 of the issue. Yep. So yeah, that's what I would throw out there for people. Like, it basically encompasses a lot of things that I know a lot of people love in comics, and from a story element wise, and that's why I put them in there, is because I love those things too. But I'm also not doing a Spider-Man 3 thing where I'm jamming everything possible into this first issue. So
Spider-Man 3. What's so funny? I just saw somebody reference the next Disney or Disney, and I don't even know what it is anymore.
Yeah.
I just saw someone reference the next Spider-Man film after Far From Home as Spider-Man 3, and my eye twitched so hard. I'm like, no, don't call it that. Yes, I understand. It's the third Tom Holland film, but please Don't.
Don't call it that.
Spider-Man 3. Oh my god, don't do it. The other thing you might want to look into, and again, even though I'm saying this in this podcast, no connection, no nothing, not trying to influence anyone that may be listening to this, maybe since Jamie's in graphic design and you guys can assemble this, maybe go Comixology Originals.
Yeah.
To get it onto Comixology, to get it onto Comixology yourselves. I don't know how the Comixology Originals program works, but I know that there are a lot of original that are not DC, not Marvel, not IDW, not Boom, not Image, not anybody.
Yeah.
They have their own thing, so maybe that would be a way.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you right now, looking at the two preview pages, I need to see that on Comixology, whether it's with a big name publisher or not, because for me, I can only read comics in guided view and evil run Comixology. Yeah. I cannot, I had to specifically zoom in on the Kickstarter page just to read any of this, because I'm like, I need my guided view, damn it.
No, I totally get that. And it's something where there's quite a few, thankfully, like I say, I have a lot of friends that are in the business, and they've told me about different avenues that will be available to me to look into. And so I'm going to be shopping it around. Like I said, this isn't just hey, I want to do one comic and that's it. I would love it if this became my life. So, and it's one of those things too. I'm about to turn 44 years old, so I'm starting late in life, but it's one of those things it's never too late. And that's a big thing is this has been a dream of mine to always do this. So I'm going to make my dream come true. And you're never too old to do that. So that's what this has become for me.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Give out those social media things one more time.
Yes. So you can go to Facebook and search Stealth Hammer. You'll find it there. You can go to at Stealth Hammer on Twitter, and then you search Stealth Hammer on Instagram, and everything is there. And if you go to Kickstarter and search Stealth Hammer, it's the only thing that pops up with that. And you can check everything out there. You can also find other avenues for it through my podcast, which is Star Joe's. I have been posting things there as well, and we just did an episode also with the artist. Alex was on with us for that. So if you want to hear from her, you can check out the latest episode of Star Joe's and hear from the artist directly.
Very cool, very cool. Instagram stealth_hammer, in case you're wondering, folks, because sometimes Instagram is weird. There are too many underscores. I tried getting just TFG1Mike. It's like somebody else. I'm like, who the hell else has that? No one else in 11. No, whatever. Anyway,
that's what happened for me too.
The final question I have, because I don't know, I've never done one of these things.
Yes.
What happens to the money if the Kickstarter doesn't get funded? Does that automatically go back to the backers, I assume?
Yes.
Do you guys not? I don't know. I've not really looked into it.
That's a very good question, and I do have a lot of people that constantly have been telling me, I want to back it, but I don't have the money right now. Here's the brilliant thing with Kickstarter. You don't get charged anything at all until October 20th comes, and only if I reach my goal. So you actually are not charged anything now. You can put in whatever you want now. Mm-hmm. You might get a temporary authorization. I don't think you even get that, but you might get a temporary authorization, but those fall off after a day or two.
Right,
But when October 20th comes, if I don't hit my goal, you don't get charged anything. If I do hit my goal, that's when you get charged. So that's why I tell people, get in there early, and put in for what you want now. You don't have to worry about having the money right now. You only have to worry about having the money by October 20th. And like I said, if I don't reach my goal, you don't get charged anything, and then I have to reevaluate things. I do have contingency plans in place because you just have to, that's how my mind works. I have to think, what am I going to do if this doesn't reach its goal? That's the brilliant part of Kickstarter, is that you don't have to worry about being charged anything until October 20th.
Very cool, very cool. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here inside this very special episode of the Pull Bag. Coming up next, as I said, starting off in October, we've got sort of a Star Trek leftover kind of thing, because September kind of turned into like Star Trek month at the end there. Episode 372 and 373 was Star Trek versus Green Lantern Volumes 1 and 2. So in October, we've got Star Trek Mirror Broken from IDW and Star Trek versus Transformers from IDW. And then we've got Edge of Spider-Verse, Superman Year 1, Number 2, and then Star Wars 2015 Volumes 1 and 2 to close out October. You can find me online at TFG1Mike. Follow at Geekcast Radio for all the other network updates. You can also follow at the Pull Bag, all social media things for that as well. At least Facebook and Twitter. That's the other thing. I'm not creating 7 different Instagram no.
I don't blame you there.
Yeah, no. Make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time here inside the Pull Bag.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at ThePullBag and at GeekCastRadio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.